Welcome, friends and fellow creatives. Welcome back to another episode of Talent Talks, where we explore what it takes to build a creative career that's both sustainable and fulfilling. I'm your host, Kaileigh Otsuka, founder of KO Creative, and today we're diving into a topic that doesn't get talked about enough: when to fire a client and how to do it well. If you caught our last episode about setting boundaries without burning bridges, this conversation is a perfect follow-up, because sometimes the ultimate boundary is knowing when to walk away. This is one of those hard conversations that can make the difference between a business that you love and one that completely drains you. I've had to make this call before, and let's be honest, it's never easy, but it is necessary. So in this episode, we'll walk through the signs that it might be time to part ways, how to shift your mindset around it, and exactly what to say when you decide to fire a client without burning bridges. So let's state the obvious first. Not every client is meant for every season of your business, and that's okay. Sometimes we take on work that fit us 2 years ago, but no longer does. Sometimes it's a relationship that started great, but evolves into something that no longer aligns with our capacity, values, or boundaries. And here's something that Brené Brown, author of Dare to Lead, said that really resonates with me here. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Ending a client relationship clearly and with kindness is, in my opinion, one of the most respectful things that you can do, both for yourself and for the client, because it protects your energy and honors the other person's right to know where they stand with you. There's also one thing that I want to normalize, and it's ending a client relationship is not your personal failure. It's actually a sign of growth. It can be one of the most powerful boundary-setting moves that you make as a creative business owner, and it frees you up to do your best work with the right people, which then will propel you to the next, stage or creative idea. So here are a few red flags that I've encountered that tell me that it might be time to part ways with a client. Number one is constant scope creep. So despite constant conversations with this person, they just keep asking for an expansion of the tasks that you're meant to do, even though you've already had the black and white, you have the scope all written out of your daily tasks, weekly, etc., and they keep asking you for just one more thing. If after continuous conversations, they're still asking you to kind of veer outside of your scope without seeing a monetary change in your contract, it might be time to fire that client. Number two is emotional dread. So there have been clients that I've felt physically tense with, or I get anxious with before I have to talk to. This happened more in my early career when I was working with large C Corps and tech companies. But there's this one CMO that I would get nervous every single time I had to talk to him, and he was my boss, so we would get a lot of FaceTime in. And I would get physically tense, I would notice that I'd get anxious. I wasn't sleeping well through that whole 12-month contract. So if you're experiencing any type of emotional dread, maybe that's your body's sign to say things aren't aligning here, and if you can, it might be time to part ways. Number three is payment issues. So late payments, non-payment, or constant negotiation that leaves you resentful. I had this one client, and from the beginning, the conversation just didn't sit right with me, and I should have just let it go right there. But I was young, and it was in the early stages of my career. And I ended up working a month for him, and then he pretended to deposit the money for payment, and then when the month was through, he never paid me, and I was out $500. And I know that's not much, but I think I get even more angry when I think about how he got away with it, and there was zero repercussions for him. And from how he talked about it and how he was upset that I wouldn't do free work for him, it was clear that he'd done it to a lot of freelancers before me. So learn from my mistakes, trust your gut. Number four is value misalignment. So if the project or client behavior starts to contradict your own personal values or your business values, red flag. Again, the same bad client I mentioned before, he also wanted me to generate hundreds of fake news articles on several leading US news channels. And these were articles that had absolutely no legitimate standing. The quote-unquote sources section for each article was just more fake news articles that led to other articles that he'd published, or like other, news outlets that he owned. So they had no legitimate standing, no actual data, quotes, or evidence. Huge red flag. And again, he even threatened to not pay me if I didn't finish an extra month of work for free. I still walked away, and the only thing I regret is not trusting my gut in the first place. All right, I think we're on number 5. So you've outgrown the engagement. So your skills, pricing, or vision have evolved, but the client relationship hasn't. So when I first started writing 10 years ago, I wrote dog blogs. They were actually really fun. So basically they were 1,000 to 1,500 word blogs about different dog breeds. I wrote every single one for $15 a pop, and after taxes and everything was said and done, it was around $11, $11.50 per blog. Mind you, this was before AI, and these blogs would take me around an hour and a half to 2 hours to write, and the client was absolutely great. But would I work with him now at the same rate, now that I have over a decade of experience? That's not likely. Also, you don't have to check all of these boxes of red flags. Actually, I hope that you don't check all of these boxes. 1 or 2 is usually enough to consider whether the client fits your business or doesn't. And I'd say follow your gut instinct. So let's talk more about mindset shifts. So before you have this conversation with your client, let's set yourself up for success by framing what parting with this client means. I usually tell myself something along the lines of, ending well is a form of leadership, it shows professionalism, and it protects my reputation. More importantly, a no here creates room for aligned yeses elsewhere. And this is where I always think of Seth Godin, best-selling author of This is Marketing and The Practice. He puts it so well. He says, "The clients you fire today make room for the clients you'll thank tomorrow." It's easy to forget that when we cling to misaligned relationships, we're blocking the space for aligned ones. So every healthy no makes space for the right yes. And finally, you are not responsible for managing your client's disappointment. You are responsible for protecting your own business, and thus your capacity and energy for client asks. So now we'll get into the practical application of things, scripts that you can really use, and how to actually say it. I always come back to something by Jessica Hische. She's a lettering artist, author of Tomorrow I'll Be Brave, and creator of Helping You Answer. She once wrote, "Every time I say yes to something I didn't want to do, I was saying no to something that I did want to do, but hadn't made the space for yet." That's why having clear scripts ready can help you respond with clarity when the moment comes, without spiraling into guilt or trying to over-explain. And speaking of making the words easier, this episode is sponsored by KO Creative, and we've put together a free set of tools you can grab right now to help with this exact conversation. You'll find client breakup email templates, an offboarding checklist, and a health check quiz, all at www.kocreativeagency.com/tools for creatives. Sometimes the hardest part is knowing what to say, and this will help. Now, here are 3 tone options to help you navigate this with grace. On our website, we have friendly, and then we also have gentle but clear, and firm for those clients that maybe just aren't getting the message. I'll go ahead and read through all 3 right now. I've really enjoyed working on Project X, but at this time, I'm unable to continue with the project moving forward. I want to make this transition as smooth as possible and can provide final files and next steps. If you're needing something more gentle but clear, you can say, "I'm finding that this project is no longer aligned with my current capacity or business focus. I'd like to bring it to a close respectfully and will provide final deliverables and a clear offboarding process." If you want something more firm, you can try, "Per our contract, I'm providing X days/weeks notice that I'll be ending my involvement with this project. I will deliver all agreed upon work to date but will not be taking on further scope beyond that. Also, another pro tip is always send this in writing. Even if you've discussed it on a call, Gmeet, Zoom, you want an email record or just a text typed record of this, that you've said this to this client, so they can't go back and say, well, we never had this conversation, or this is such out of the blue thing. Because in my experience, usually clients that you want to drop, or they're not the best clients, they're also not the most organized. And so I have had instances where they're like, we've never had this conversation, and I didn't have it in black and white, or I didn't have text evidence or an email that showed that I said this to them. So again, learn from my mistakes, always send this in writing. All right, so let's talk about offboarding with integrity, because how you end matters just as much as when you begin. And there's a quote from Melanie Spring, that I like. She's a brand storyteller and leadership speaker that I often think about when I'm deciding how to close a client relationship. She says, your energy is currency. Spend it wisely. So offboarding well is an energy investment, one that protects your peace, models leadership, and helps you move forward cleanly. Here are a few things that I do that kind of helps me with the offboarding process. Number 1, I provide clear final deliverables and milestones. Number 2, I document my offboarding timeline in writing. Number 3, this is optional, but I offer alternative referrals if I have them for that specific task. Number 4, I keep communication respectful and professional. And number 5, I don't over-explain myself or apologize excessively. Clarity is kindness. And remember, ending well doesn't just protect your own energy, it models professionalism for your client as well. You never know who will refer you later based on how you handle this moment. Firing a client doesn't make you a bad business owner or a bad creative. It makes you a sustainable one. It teaches you valuable lessons about who you are and who you want to work with, how you want to work, and what you're building moving forward. So if this episode resonated with you, or if you know someone that's navigating this exact challenge, please share it with them. And if you'd like done-for-you client breakup email templates, an offboarding checklist, and a client relationship health check quiz, you can grab these all for free at www.kocreativeenagency.com/tools-for-creatives, because ending well is a business skill we all need. And once you've used these tools, I'd love to hear what shifts for you. DM me on Instagram at KOCreative, or tag me when you take your next brave boundary step. We're building a culture of sustainable creative work, and your voice belongs in it. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time on Talent Talks.